We've all got these little invisible scripts running in the back of our minds, and they are influencing pretty much every decision we make every single day. So today, we're going to pull back the curtain on this really fascinating topic, unconscious bias.
I mean, really think about it. You meet someone for the very first time and bam, you either feel this instant connection or maybe a little bit of hesitation. You can't explain it, you can't put your finger on exactly why, but that feeling is definitely there. So where in the world does that come from?
Well, that gut feeling, it's not magic. It's actually just your brain doing what it does best, being super efficient. See, it creates these little mental shortcuts to process the millions of bits of info we're hit with every single second. It's a totally normal and very human thing.
But this mental autopilot, it has a name. And honestly, understanding it is the key to making better, fairer decisions. So let's get into it and put a real definition on the table.
Okay, here we go. Unconscious bias. And the most important word there is automatic. These judgments, they happen without us even noticing. They're shaped by our upbringing, by the media we consume, by all sorts of cultural stereotypes. Now, this doesn't make us bad people, not at all. It just means our brains have been kind of programmed by the world around us.
So what do these mental shortcuts actually look like when they're out in the wild? Let's meet the usual suspects, a kind of rogues gallery of our most common biases. Getting to know them is really the first step in being able to spot them.
First up, we've got affinity bias. This is the whole "we just clicked" bias. It's that warm, fuzzy feeling we get around people who remind us of, well, ourselves. It's why a hiring manager might think a candidate who also loves hiking is a better culture fit, even if another candidate is way more qualified. I mean, it feels harmless, right? But it can be a real trap.
Next is a really tricky one, confirmation bias. The best way to think about this is like your brain is acting like your own personal cheerleader, and it's always looking for proof that you were right all along. So if you think a new project is a terrible idea, you're going to subconsciously look for every little thing that goes wrong and completely ignore all the positive signs. It literally filters reality to match what you already expect.
And then there's attribution bias. This is where things get really unfair. It's when we explain why people succeed or fail based on a stereotype, instead of looking at their actual performance. For instance, if a male colleague lands a huge deal, we might think, oh, he's such a go-getter. But if a female colleague does the exact same thing, that little bias in our head might whisper, well, she must have gotten lucky. See? It gives credit based on a mental blueprint, not on individual skill.
Now let's talk about two sides of the very same coin, the halo and the horns effects. The halo effect is when one great thing about someone, say they went to a fancy university, makes us just assume they're brilliant at everything, without any proof. And the horns effect? Yep, it's the total opposite. Someone shows up 5 minutes late to one meeting, and suddenly our brain labels them as unreliable and disrespectful in everything they do. Just one tiny detail completely hijacks our entire perception of them. Look, these aren't just quirky little things our brains do. They have a massive and often really damaging ripple effect out in the real world. And this is where it all gets very serious. It's one thing to have a gut feeling about someone you just met, right? But it's a whole other ballgame when these automatic judgments start influencing huge, life-altering decisions, especially at work. And the impact is just huge. Think about hiring. Affinity bias can mean the only people who get hired are the ones who look and think just like the people already on the team. When we talk about promotions, the halo effect might push a charismatic but so-so employee up the ladder, right past someone who's quieter but way more competent. For big projects, attribution bias could mean that the exciting, career-making assignments always go to one group of people over another. And just in our everyday team interactions, it can create a place where some people's ideas are always heard, while others have to fight just to get a word in.
So what do we do about all this? It might sound like a huge, impossible problem, but here's the good news. We are not slaves to our brain's autopilot. We can absolutely learn to take the wheel. So let's open up a practical, bias-fighting toolkit. It really boils down to three key things. First, just increasing your self-awareness. Seriously, just knowing these biases exist is half the battle. Second, start using structured processes. This means building systems that stop bias in its tracks. Things like blind recruitment, where you take names off resumes so you can only focus on skills, or using the same interview questions for every single candidate. And third, you have to encourage diverse perspectives. Go out of your way to build teams with people who think differently than you do. It's the best way to challenge your own assumptions and break out of that echo chamber.
If you only take one single thing away from all of this, let it be this right here. You can't fix a problem if you don't even know you have it. Simply becoming aware that your brain wants to take these shortcuts, that awareness is the single most powerful step you can take towards making more conscious, deliberate, and fair choices.
So I'll leave you with this question. As you go about the rest of your day, talking to people at work, your friends, your family, what's one automatic assumption? One of those gut feelings that you can just pause and consciously challenge. The power to change really does begin right there. Thanks for joining me.